Hi everyone, welcome back to Difference Frames the World, a channel that offers a unique perspective. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so you will not miss DFTW's daily uploads. Today, let's talk about India and China, two of the biggest and most influential countries in the world. Their relationship is like a roller coaster, sometimes smooth, sometimes tense, always important. We have been trying to avoid the topic of India for a few years, as it has been a nightmare for the channel. After DFTW published several India-related videos in 2021, the channel was demonetized by YouTube for the excuse of not having educational value to viewers. We waited nearly 3 years to get the channel remonetized. So in this vid, if we do not criticize India and the great Indian people, that is normal. We are scared. Still, we will be neutral, neither pro-India nor pro-China, and present a true picture of the volatile relations between the two countries. That said, let us start the video with the resumption of direct flights between the two nations on October 26, 2025. India and China are finally seeing a thaw in their relationship. After years of tension and travel bans, the two countries are reopening direct flights, a move that could really help rebuild economic ties and boost tourism. The first flights run by India's Indigo airline will connect Kolkata and Guangzhou, and that's just the start. Plans are already in place to expand to more routes soon. Now, this sounds like a small step, but it's a big deal. Air travel isn't just about getting from one place to another, it's about trade, culture, and people-to-people connections. So reopening these routes is a clear sign that both sides are ready to rebuild some trust after years of border disputes and diplomatic ups and downs. Officials from both countries are sounding positive about it too. These flights boost tourism and make it easier for businesses to collaborate. Since India and China are two of the largest economies in Asia, smoother air links could make a real difference, especially when it comes to balancing trade, where India currently imports far more from China than it exports. And on a bigger level, direct flights are a reminder that cooperation is possible, even when things are complicated. Better connectivity could open the door to working together on bigger global issues, from climate change to technology to regional security. So while this might seem like a few new flights on a schedule, it's actually a meaningful sign that India and China could be moving toward a more stable and maybe even more cooperative future. Over the past 5 years, they've been through some serious ups and downs, border clashes, trade freezes, diplomatic talks, and now direct flights coming back. Let's unpack what's been happening and what it could mean for the future. The tale of two nations begins, as it often does, along their long disputed border. The two countries share more than 3,400 kilometers of mountainous frontier, known as the Line of Actual Control, or LAC. It's not fully specified, which means both sides interpret where it lies a bit differently. Back in June 2020, things turned deadly. Indian and Chinese soldiers clashed in the Galwan Valley in Ladakh with bare hands and wood sticks. 20 Indian troopers and several Chinese warriors were reportedly killed. It was the worst violence between them in decades after the India-China border war in 1962, and it froze relations almost overnight. After that, the border became a symbol of mistrust. Both countries moved more troops, built infrastructure, and launched a series of military and diplomatic talks to prevent another fight. Fast forward to December 2022, and tensions flared again. Soldiers from both sides confronted each other in Tawang. India sees Tawang and all of Arunachal Pradesh as an integral part of the country, a fully functioning Indian state with its own government, roads, schools, and everything else. But China has a very different view. It claims almost the entire state, calling it South Tibet. And within that, the Tawang area is especially sensitive to Beijing, not just for political reasons, but also for religious ones. You see, Tawang is home to one of the largest Tibetan Buddhist monasteries in the world, and it's also where the 6th Dalai Lama was born. That gives the area deep cultural and spiritual significance in Tibetan history, which China ties into its claim. India, of course, completely rejects this. The Indian government says the border, known as the McMahon Line, was settled way back in 1914, and that Tawang has always been part of India. China does not recognize the so-called McMahon Line, as China's central governments, both the nationalists and the communists, have never admitted it. In the brief clash between Indian and Chinese troops near Tawang in December 2022, both sides quickly pulled back, and things calmed down, to the disappointment of some Western nations. There were injuries but no deaths. Still, it reminded everyone that peace remained fragile. Then came a turning point. In October 2024, India and China reached an agreement on how to handle border patrols and avoid clashes. It was a big deal, the first major progress since 2020. According to reports, both sides agreed to new communication channels and clearer patrol boundaries in certain sectors. While it didn't magically end the dispute, it marked a willingness to calm things down. A couple of months later, in December 2024, senior diplomats met again for another round of border talks. They called it constructive. Diplomats speak for, "We didn't solve everything, but at least we're talking again." By mid-2025, India and China began acting like neighbors who might coexist peacefully. Trade figures ticked upward, and Chinese and Indian officials even met on the sidelines of international events. Then, in October 2025, a symbolic milestone, both countries agreed to resume direct passenger flights suspended for years due to the pandemic and political chill, which we mentioned at the start of the video. Now, it's not just about the border or trade. The India-China relationship sits inside a bigger global puzzle. India is juggling ties with the United States, Russia, and China, all at the same time. For instance, India keeps buying discounted Russian oil, which annoys Washington, but also wants American investment and technology. About the discounted Russian oil, Donald Trump said Modi agreed to stop buying it, but not even an Indian person heard it. Modi has neither confirmed it nor denied it. Trump was pissed off and threatened to impose tariffs on Indian imports, as always. Meanwhile, China is strengthening its global reach as a new superpower and competing with the US on all fronts. When India talks with China, it's really about balancing multiple power centers. It wants to avoid being boxed in by anyone, the classic multi-alignment strategy. Even though the ice is thawing, it's not springtime yet. Several issues are still on the table. The borderline is still disputed. Troops are still stationed, and both sides are building roads and infrastructure. Trade imbalance is still a flashpoint. India imports far more from China than it exports, resulting in a massive trade deficit. Technology and security are still headaches for both sides. India has banned hundreds of Chinese apps and restricted Huawei and ZTE from its 5G rollout. Both countries are competing for influence in Asia, from Nepal and Sri Lanka to the Indian Ocean. Some Indians fear that if they do not work harder, the Chinese will catch up soon. In short, they've stopped fighting, but they haven't started trusting. The relationship between China and India matters to the whole world. Together, India and China represent over a third of the world's population. When they cooperate, trade flows smoother and global growth benefits. When they clash, markets shake and smaller Asian nations get caught in the middle. Small clashes lead to big ripples. That is why even small gestures, like reopening flights or restarting border talks, send big signals to investors and governments everywhere. If things stay stable, we may see Modi and Xi meet more frequently. Modi first visited China in 2015 and met the Chinese leader, and he recently met Xi Jinping in Tianjin at the end of August 2025. Modi tries to be a friend of influential leaders like Trump, Putin, and Xi Jinping, but few leaders in the world view him as a buddy. At the end of the video appears a timeline of key events between China and India. 2020, Galwan Valley clash. Deadly hand-to-hand fighting breaks out in eastern Ladakh. 20 Indian soldiers are killed, and China later acknowledges casualties. Relations plunge to their lowest point in decades. 2021, talks but tension. A series of meetings among military commanders led to limited troop disengagement, but mistrust runs deep. India increases border infrastructure, and China builds new military facilities along the LAC. 2022, Tawang skirmish. Dozens of soldiers were injured in a clash in Arunachal Pradesh. Both sides downplay the event, but it shows the fragile peace is still at risk. 2023, quiet year, subtle moves. Border talks continue behind closed doors. Trade remains strong despite the political chill, crossing $120 billion. India limits Chinese investment in strategic sectors. October 2024, Border Patrol Agreement. India and China agree on new patrolling protocols to avoid physical confrontations. Analysts call it the first real thaw since 2020. December 2024, diplomatic round of talks. Both sides meet again to reaffirm disengagement and explore confidence-building measures. August 2025, Xi and Modi meet. Briefly. On the sidelines of an international summit, the two leaders exchange greetings, their first public interaction in years. October 2025, flights resume. India and China restore direct passenger flights. Indigo launches Kolkata-Guangzhou route, symbolizing improved ties. Late 2025, trade revival. Business delegations resume visits. Tech, pharma, and manufacturing sectors explore cooperation again. Looking forward, India and China are not friends, but they're not enemies either. They're two giants standing side by side, cautious, calculating, and aware that their futures are tied together whether they like it or not. As two nuclear powers, China and India will coexist, maybe not always peacefully. The past 5 years have shown that diplomacy, even if slow and frustrating, can still work. Maybe not miracles, but at least it keeps the peace.